Hello, welcome to the Elone Show. I'm your host, John Elone. In this episode, don't have regulars, because reasons, I guess. As for our guest, he's from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, currently in Pennsylvania, I guess. He's a psychoanalyst and an author of 30 books. Dang, that's crazy. Ladies and gentlemen, I give you Gerald Schonenwolf.
Hello, hello. Thanks for having me on the show. Uh, it's Gerald Shana Wolf, or if you wanted to pronounce it in the correct German way, it would be Schöne Wolf. Um, uh, Glad to be here.
Me too. So, how's life?
Life is okay. I'm here in Pennsylvania in Bethlehem, which is a town of about 75,000, and it's kind of peaceful here in this town, but it's not peaceful in the world.
Nice, nice. And have you been up to much recently?
Oh, tomorrow I'm going to go to a college football game nearby, and my wife and I, we like to go away someplace on weekends. Like there's an Amish neighborhood near here, but during the week I see about 30 patients online. I'm a psychotherapist, and I see all my patients online these days. And I also, whenever I have spare time, I'll work on my latest book.
Nice. And are there any besides the 30 books you already published, are there any more books you're currently in the process of writing?
Well, yes, I'm I just finished another book called How to Save the World in 10 Complicated Steps. Um, so I just published that one, and I'm working on a novel as well.
All right, very good. So, what encouraged you to take the path that you're currently on right now?
You mean writing?
Well, yes, but I'm more about being a psychologist.
Well, I became a psychoanalyst, which is a kind of psychotherapist. Um, when I was in my early 20s, I went into therapy myself, and I got a lot out of it. I realized that it was kind of something I really needed to do. Uh, I was unstable in those days, and it was a way of knowing myself, and I really had an affinity for psychology, so I began to study it myself. I had come to New York. I grew up in Texas, and I came to New York when I was 19 and stayed in New York and got my psychoanalyst certificate and my PhD, and began practicing in around 1979, and then I've been practicing for 47 years.
Wow,
And then
nice.
sometime during that point, I also always wanted to be a writer, and I started out by writing psychology books. I wrote about 15 of those, and then I started also writing other things. I wrote a lot of screenplays. I wrote 9 novels, and I really enjoy writing.
Fabulous. Now, what kind of screenplays have you written exactly?
Oh, I've written 20 screenplays, and I also actually produced and wrote and directed 2 of them. One was called Therapy, and it's a feature film about a therapist who uh, falls in love with one of his patients, who happens to have multiple personalities. Uh, and then I wrote another and filmed another screenplay called Brooklyn Nights, which was based on a Dostoevsky short story called White Night.
Hmm. Okay, that's cool. Do you still hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay, I was just checking if connection's good. So, if you were given 500 acres of land, what would you use that land for?
Uh, uh, 500 acres of land. I would, let's see, that's a interesting idea. Uh, I guess I would use it to, I'd live on it, and maybe I would start some kind of community there. Uh, the community of people that have like to talk about things and non politically and establish a close bond with one another.
Yeah, sounds like something I would do too.
It seems like today it's hard to establish close bonds. We have such a restless world that people are kind of living with a lot of anxiety today. I think all over the world.
Yes, absolutely. If you could know the absolute and total truth to one question, what question would you ask?
Hmm. Uh, okay, you've got a lot of interesting questions here. What question would I ask if I wanted to know the answer? I guess maybe I would ask, will human beings ever develop medicine to the extent that they can live forever?
Oh yeah, that is a good question. What hobby would you get into if time and money weren't an issue?
Oh, well, you know, I think I'm already doing it. Writing is kind of my avocation, vocation, hobby. Uh, I write all the time. I've written 30 books, now on 31. And every chance I get, I sit down and write. Writing makes me feel good. Writing makes me feel fulfilled.
Fabulous. Are there similarities or differences between a psychologist and a psychoanalyst?
Well, psychoanalysis, I mean, yes, it's similar. Psychoanalysis is a form of psychology. Um, Psychoanalysis was founded by Freud, Sigmund Freud. Uh, so psychoanalysts are therapists who are different from other psychotherapists because we believe that the relationship is the cure. So we put a lot of emphasis on the relationship with the client and how it's going, and we discuss the relationship and try to see how is the client relating to me. Is he doing the same thing with me that he does with other people? If the relationship starts to not work with me, then maybe we have a clue as to why it stops working with other people. um, Also, psychoanalysts tend to go back into early childhood to see what happened in early childhood to begin forming a person's personality and also his whatever dysfunctions he has.
All right, that's pretty interesting. What fictional item do you wish you owned in real life?
What fictional what
What fictional item do you wish you owned in real life?
fictional item? Uh, Gee, you these questions really make me have to think. That's not fair. uh, all right, let's see. What fictional item? Uh, oh, uh, well, Maybe I'd like to own Dostoevsky's pen, whatever pen he used to write his books.
Ah, nice. What is your favorite quote?
My favorite quote. Let's see. There's so many, but I love the quote by. I think it was Winston Churchill. He said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself."
Yes, I can see that now. If you could live anywhere in the world, where would it be?
Oh, I think I'd live on some small island somewhere. In could be in the Pacific. Uh, that'd be nice. Go fishing every day for bass, sea bass.
Fabulous. Would you rather be teleported 500 years into the future or 500 years into the past?
Hmm. Well, I think I'd rather be teleported into the future because I already know what the past is, but I don't know the future. I'd be curious to find out.
Fair enough. How much time do you spend on the internet?
Well, I spend a lot of time. I'm there all day because I do psychotherapy online. I have about 30 clients. So Monday to Thursday, I'm doing psychotherapy. Then on Friday, I do podcasts like I'm doing today, or my wife and I go shopping or do some task we need to do. Um, Weekends, we do more fun things. Like tomorrow, we're going to a college football game.
Nice.
But I spend too much time on the computer, and my computer, my Apple computer, tells me how many hours I'm spending, and each week, and I need to get more exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're going to sail all across the globe, what's the name of your boat?
The name of my boat. Well, the name of my publishing company is Living Center Press, so maybe it would be Living Center.
Sounds very fitting. Would you rather not be able to open closed doors or not be able to close open doors?
Let me see if I get that. Not to be able to open closed doors. Can you repeat that?
Would you rather not be able to open closed doors or not be able to close open doors?
Well, I guess it would be the latter. I wouldn't want to close open doors.
Yes, absolutely. There's tons of opportunities ahead of you. If you're going on a road trip, what two items do you make sure to bring with you?
Well, I guess it would depend on where the road trip was going. If it was going to a desert, I'd bring water for sure. Uh, if it was going to the city, to some city, I would have to bring things like that I would need in the city, like perhaps nice clothes to wear when going out to dinner. So it would depend entirely on where I was going.
Yeah, absolutely. What could you give a 40-minute presentation on without any preparation?
Well, I could give a presentation on the book, that I wrote, the Mass Killer, uh, six case histories that tell us why. I've been giving some podcasts on that book, so I'm pretty prepared to talk about that book and about the mass killings that keep happening in the United States, why they're happening, and how they can be prevented.
Hmm, interesting. And in terms of your recent book, what else does it tell exactly?
Well, the mass killer, first of all, it dispels the notion that guns are the reason why we have mass killings. Guns have always been available in the United States, since the Second Amendment in the late 1700s gave everybody their own guns. But mass killings have been a recent thing in the last few decades. Uh, America right now has twice as many mass killings as any other country, and there's a reason for that. And in my research, I point to uh, the deterioration of the family and of, of quality parenting and of the deterioration of American culture, which is very divided and dysfunctional right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there a way to reduce those numbers potentially?
Well, it's a very complicated situation. Uh, you know, First of all, I think we have to try to understand what happened to the family and what happened to child rearing, because I found that all of these, I studied carefully six mass killers in my book, and I found that all of them have early traumas. Like in the first 1, 2, 3 years of life, and these traumas are very devastating. Uh, one mass killer, you know, was born to a woman who had, who was postpartum depression kind of mother, and so she hardly ever picked him up or fed him or paid any attention to him. He was completely neglected, and that when a baby is born and completely neglected, you could just imagine it's devastating to the baby, and it kind of leads to a child that suffers lifetime depression. Uh, so all of these mass killers had these kind of traumas in their early childhood, and then I found that they also then had to grow up in a society. These were all mainly white males that are mass killers, and they grow up in a society that is anti-white male at this point in history. Uh, and it's a divided and violent society. They see other mass killers, and they're in a rage themselves, looking for a release of this rage, and they look at mass killers and they see, hey, I'll do that. It's kind of a copycat kind of thing.
Yes,
So now
absolutely.
you're asking about prevention. So, I mean, one of the things I proposed in the book was that parents, before they have children, should have to register, should have to get a license to have children. Barbers are required to have a license. You're required to have a license if you go fishing. Uh, you know, all these things you have to have a license for. But one of the most complicated things that anybody can do, having and raising a child, you don't have to have a license for. Um, and I think maybe parents need to be licensed. They need to be trained. Uh, in order to raise healthy children and in order for example, schizophrenic parents and borderline parents and bipolar parents and psychopathic parents to be weeded out. Uh, so that's one proposal.
Ah, all right then. I can see that's pretty good way.
And another proposal I came up with is that political groups should need to register with the government, because it seems like political groups have, in a sense, taken over America, and it's become divided because of them. Uh, they engage in riots and violent behavior and other such things, manipulative behavior, deceitful behavior, and this stuff needs to be reined in. So I would say that political groups need to register with the government and held to account for how they function.
Yes, absolutely.
And then, well, let's see. I'm trying to think of the some other ideas I came up with. Let me just check this. Well, I think that things like education needs to be standardized. There needs to be some kind of standardized education that it has been shown by research to be healthy and lead to people who are healthily educated, not just educated with propaganda. These are some of the ideas that I've had about, and of course I understand that these ideas probably will never be developed. Uh, I mean, right now the atmosphere in America and in the world uh, is so kind of heated and hysterical that people are not listening to anybody like myself who was trying to solve the problem. They're intent on solving the problem through some kind of political action, and that really, if it's a political action, especially if it's a war, that's not ever going to solve any problems.
Of course.
So I've written this book, The Mass Killer, 6 case histories to tell us why. It's not just a scholarly book. It's written so that anybody can read it. Uh, it's got this 6 case histories at the center, and the 6 case histories read kind of like stories. Uh, People say they read this book and they can't put it down because it's very absorbing, especially if you're interested in true crime. It's very absorbing to read these 6 case histories, and I think in the case histories themselves, one can see what happens to human beings and why they're usually human beings who cannot deal with the things that happen to them in life because they weren't given the guidance to do that in their childhoods, and they build up their internalizers, they internalize their anger, and they build up a rage, and that rage eventually explodes. And these case histories show the process of that in the 6 different cases. And it is a problem we need to solve, and it's going to take a lot of work to solve it. It's not an easy solution like banning guns.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
If you could have a never-ending candle that smelled like anything you wanted, what fragrance would you want it to be?
Oh, well, I think roses smell nice. That would be a good smell. So
Okay,
yeah, so I could live on my island, which you asked me before where I would want to live. I'd live on my island and I have a lot of roses on the island.
nice. If you could turn any activity into an Olympic sport, what would you have a good chance at winning a medal for?
Well, I'm pretty old. Maybe tiddlywinks, if they offered tiddlywinks at the Olympics, I think I might do well at that.
Hmm, all right, that's interesting. When things break, do you prefer to fix them or replace them?
Well, if it's a small break, then I prefer to fix them. Uh, I for a while the sound system on my computer didn't work, and so I tried to fix it, and I had a friend who told me that it was probably there was some software that was conflicting, and so I cleaned up the computer, and then the sound system started working again. But if it's a big problem, like the computer crashes and won't work anymore, then of course you'd have to get a new one.
Yes, I can see that. What happens in real life but rarely gets portrayed in movies?
Oh, well, I think the dark side of human life doesn't get portrayed in movies. Movies tend to be escape films or fantasies, or romances, but you don't see movies about that very often, uh, about families that are falling apart, uh, or about well, and then uh, for example, there some people think that the CIA assassinated uh, John F. Kennedy. You don't see any movies about that because maybe people are afraid if they write a movie and do a movie about the CIA assassinating Kennedy, the CIA might assassinate them. Uh, so there's certain things you don't write about because there's some kind of political pressure that would stop you from doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. If you could slow down time, what would you do? What would you do with that power?
If I could slow down time, and I had the means to do that, that'd be a very important skill. Uh, so now, would that be a skill that I would want to share with people? I would have to think about what would be the effect of slowing down time. It'd be a complicated thing. But if
Yeah,
I thought that it would be a beneficial to humanity, then I suppose I would then write a paper about it or reveal it in some way so that everybody could do it.
yes, indeed. And that is all we have for this episode. It's great having you on, Gerald, talking about working as a psychoanalyst, your recent book, and ways to prevent mass killing and everything else. It's been great.
Well, thank you so much for having me on.
You're welcome.
Interesting show.
It sure is. And until next time, stay tuned for more.